Today I have a very special guest. I'm introducing Bedros Keuilian to the Lilian Tahmasian channel.
I'm so sorry. Your intro's Hi My Loves.
Thank you, Lala.
Thank you for reminding her.
Thank you, Lala. Before we jump into today's video, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Best School, for sending over their 4-wavelength full red light therapy Pro 300. So if you don't know much about red light therapy, let me tell you a little bit about it. It's great for skin rejuvenation and anti-aging, great for weight loss and reduction of cellulite. So with one click of a button, it helps reduce joint pain and inflammation, reduces training fatigue, and boosts your energy and immunity. You can pop it on any wall, any door, or in your living room, and you can work out to it as well. This will also help improve your sleep quality, which is amazing. It improves your scars and it's great for muscle recovery, just to name a few. It's very simple and easy to use, and do not forget to wear your goggles. Thank you so much to Best School. Once again, do not forget to use the code Lilian10, which I'm going to be linking in the description below, to get a discounted rate on your next red light therapy. Bedros, you better try this as well. Hello to my beautiful followers. I want to welcome you all to my channel and welcome Bedros Keuilian to the Lilian Tahmasian channel.
Thank you.
Of course.
I'm just going to interrupt you and say thank you.
Interrupt. Welcome. I'm so excited to have him here. So firstly, if you have been following me for 13 years, I hope to inspire and motivate my followers. And when Ireland told me about Bedros and what he does and his family values and his work ethic and just everything about him, we were like, we have to have him on my channel. And Ireland's joining me today as well. So welcome to the channel.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's great to meet you both, and welcome to our headquarters.
It's a beautiful place. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Bedros, so I want to dive into what you've achieved so far, what you've built for yourself. You've built over 7 companies. You have True Lean, passion projects. The project itself. Mm-hmm. You're a best-selling author, or Man Up. It's truly amazing what you've accomplished. You generate over $200 million a year. You're one of those rare cases that when you talk, people listen to you. You truly do make people want to become a fighter jet. Are you happy with what you've built?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Am I happy with what I've built? Yes. Am I satisfied with what I've built? No. And I think a lot of high achievers, type A people who feel they're meant for more. My good friend Ed Milet has a term, he says, stay blissfully dissatisfied. So I'm happy, I'm grateful, but I'm not satisfied with what I've achieved. I will probably never be satisfied because that's just the cloth I'm cut from. But yeah, it definitely feels amazing to be able to impact lives, whether it's through our franchise, Fit Body Bootcamp, or through my book, or through podcast platforms, or speaking from stage. It's a blessing. It's a gift. I've escaped Armenia, our motherland, right, and came here to the United States. And so living in Section 8 housing, not speaking English, definitely being poor and broke. So now I have a bit of a Cinderella life, right, where I've seen a massive transformation in my life, and I know that that's a gift to me, and I never squander that, and I feel I need to serve humanity with it. So I do the best I can, yeah.
You're doing a great job. So we loved your book. I
Thank
think
you.
it was a great read. Oh my gosh, you spoke about so many things, and so many things stood out. I've highlighted half the book. So you always talk about a concrete morning routine, which has changed your life. But I haven't read much about a nighttime routine. So what does a nighttime routine consist of?
Yeah.
How do you prepare for the night before?
That's a really good question. If I could go back and rewrite my book, I
I
would probably add a evening routine, because truly a morning routine that is going to set you up to win starts the night before, right?
100%.
Because if I stay awake late and I have a bunch of alcohol and I have restless sleep and I overeat and I didn't sleep well, now my morning is shot no matter how structured it is. And so what I found works for me, and since we're all basically human and we have very similar patterns of life, what works for me most likely will work for most people, which is to do away with your devices, your screens, especially like iPad, iPhones, all those things, by 8 p.m. I go to bed by 10 o'clock. My goal is to wake up at 5:30, which means I want to get those screens out of my face. The reason I say iPad and iPhone and not so much television is because I'll watch an episode or two of a favorite show that we watch. It's entertainment. But if I'm in my iPad or my iPhone and I'm aimlessly, mindlessly scrolling through social media, I'm going to find information that might make me feel a certain way.
Or trigger you.
Or trigger me emotionally, mentally, right? Now I'm taking all that mental baggage to bed with me. Again, I'm not going to have restful sleep. So the things I do at night is I turn off my phone and my iPad by 8 o'clock, number one. Number two, I stopped drinking this past November 12th. And I used to social drink. I just stopped drinking altogether. I don't eat after 7 p.m., so I've digested all my food. And then the rest of it is I make my GSD list, my Get Shit Done list, which I talk about in my book, the night before. And I think that's a great thing to do because when you're a type A person, entrepreneur, you're driven, you're always thinking up ideas. Like just driving here, you guys probably had ideas. You walk in this room and you have ideas. As you leave here, you're gonna have ideas. Those ideas swirl around in your head, and at nighttime, they're gonna keep you awake. But if you can do a brain dump onto a notepad, onto some kind of a document, even on your phone, if you can just do a brain dump, these are the things I'm gonna explore tomorrow morning in this order. This is my stuff that I'm gonna get done. Now you've taken that swirling information out, put it on a document. You haven't seen anything that's going to trigger you. You've had family time that's meaningful. You haven't overeaten, overdrank. Odds are you're going to have decent sleep, and that's going to set you up for a great morning routine.
And you're at peace.
And you're at peace, and that's really what we want. Like when people go like, man, we achieved so much. What else do you want from life? I'm like, just peace. Like, let me sleep well, quality of living. I want to raise my 2 kids with my spouse, my wife, and see that they launch into life. Like, I'm not looking to achieve anything greater in terms of more money, more companies. I would love to have more impact and influence on humanity, but the 2 greatest pieces of work that I'll ever do, and the peace of mind that I'll have when I one day die, is that my kids are able to fend for themselves and impact and influence and live a good life. I think that's the greatest work we could ever do. And so peace of mind, I think, is so underrated because
100%.
we live in a time where material things are so valued. And don't get me wrong, I love having a big building and homes and assets. I love all that. But let's not forget that there's peace of mind that's probably the greatest value that we can have.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100% is very important. Kind of going off that, not everyone has that mentality, unfortunately. But imagine if every parent thought like that. I think we would grow up in a place that everyone would just, be their highest versions of themselves. But also the opposite of that is people, as you always talk about, not everyone is a fighter jet. Not everyone is, up to their best, fullest potential, ticking off their to-do list and reaching their goals and dreams. Now, I love how you told your kids, you're like, I don't want you to live an average life, have average grades, go to an average school, average, whatever it is, partner, spouse. And I love that. As I mentioned, not every parent thinks that way. We were thankful enough, and we were very grateful to be raised in a family that always pushed us and strived us to reach our goals and, tick off that list. And once I graduated my master's in media and marketing, I was like, Mom, I'm going to become a YouTuber. She was like, no, you're not. And I was like, no, give me this chance. And she's like, okay, I'm going to give you a year. If you, reach your goals, then okay, I'm going to support you. Now she works with me full time, and I'm very grateful for that. Arlen's an engineer, my brother, my sister's becoming a doctor. So thankfully, we had that support system. Now, not everyone has that support system.
Right.
So what do you tell those people that may not have the family or may not have the parent like, how you and your wife are?
Yeah, well, it's simple. If you don't have that support system that you're looking for, we live in an age today where you can get it.
Yeah.
The fastest place, I think, to get it is to identify on social media who's a great mentor, who can be a great mentor figure, a father figure. In my book, I talk about a gentleman named Jim Franco. He was a personal training client of mine when I was a personal trainer. He was rich. I'd never met a rich person in my life. I didn't even know what they looked like. In my head, I just kind of envisioned them as something very different, right? And the way I knew he was rich, I didn't even connect the dots that he was paying $6,000 for, I think, like 3 months or 6 months of personal training with me. And he wasn't paying me, he was paying the gym. The gym was paying me $12 an hour to train him. But I didn't connect the dots there. Probably within a month of training him, I saw him pull up with 3 different cars, and one nicer than the next. And I said, Jim, how many cars do you have? He goes, several. And I said, really? He goes, you're allowed to have more than 1 car. That never even crossed my mind, because the 1 car that I had was always breaking down. It was always having trouble. This guy's got several cars. And so I started to pick his mind. And so I realized Jim Franco became my rich dad, right? My father who brought me here, man, he's courageous. He risked his life against the communist government for us to escape and to come here. And he has work ethic. And I've learned work ethic from my dad, core values from my dad, to be courageous against the opposition from my dad, which is why in 2020 during the pandemic, I was on Fox News talking out against what was happening, even though it was negatively affecting my franchise because I wouldn't keep my big mouth shut. All that came from my dad. But what my rich dad, Jim Franco, taught me was that I can be an entrepreneur. And if I add value, I can extract money. And if I learn how to lead and manage people, I can scale a business faster. Those are things that were foreign to me. I never went to college. I dropped out of college in the first 31, 32 days that I went. And so I share that with you because if I asked my mom and dad, like, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to make millions.
What would their reaction be?
It would have been,
you're crazy.
You're crazy. Yeah. What if you lose a lot of money in the process? We don't want you to get hurt. Their intentions are good, right? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, play it safe.
They come from a good place.
Yeah, the intentions are good, but they didn't have the blueprint to be able to show me the path. Thankfully, I met Jim Franco, and he says, like, yes, you can. You can have as many gyms as you want. I said, I can? And that's the whole idea of Fit Body Bootcamp now. We have hundreds of locations worldwide because Jim Franco was able to plant that seed in my head and then show me the first few steps. And so if people think that, you know, no one believes in me in my immediate family, whatever the intentions are, whether they have bad intentions or they just don't want you to risk yourself and get hurt, find a mentor out there. Can you get coaching from them? Can you go to their events? Can you put yourself within proximity of them? Can you read their books and learn about them? And if you can, you're now getting mentored by those people, and you can see them as father figures or parent figures. And that's really what it is. It goes back to a tribe raising the children. It's not just about, on my show, on the Bedros Keuilian show, I always talk about, I feel like I'm the father figure to all young men in the world.
I feel like you are too.
Yeah,
thank you. And it's a bit of a big responsibility with that, right? Because I'm also human. I get angry, I get upset, I wake up, you know, on the wrong side of the bed quite often, in fact, so I certainly am not a perfect human. But I figure, like, hey, if you haven't had a father figure in your life and you need someone who can show you some guidance, just like Jim Franco showed me, I can show the young men. And then I ask those young men to pay it forward to others. And maybe that's how we impact generations to come.
That's incredible. And I'm sure they appreciate it. Firstly, you pop up on my news feed every second on Instagram. And I think that's amazing because the more people look at you, the more they learn. And the more, that's like, if they could, you know, hope to become anyone, I'm glad if it's you, you know, because you're doing something like you're on the right track, obviously. Thank you. So I always say I'm a big believer of dreams come to those who have the power to give them life, right? Mm-hmm. And I love this quote in your book, how you mentioned, excuses kill dreams and plant the seed of future regret. Now, what's one thing that you aren't going to make an excuse so you don't have that future regret? Have you given that dream life yet, or is there something that you have to work on? That was a mouthful.
That is a really good question to ask.
Thank you.
And I don't think I've shared this publicly. I've shared it with...
Is this a first?
Yeah, I've shared this. Well, no one's asked that question. And so it's typically the same questions, right? Yeah. Tell me about how the escape from the Soviet Union was. And
we took a different approach, right?
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. And so, and I'm not going to make an excuse, but I am going to give life to this dream, just not yet, but I'm in the prep process. I do plan on doing a stand-up comedy.
You yourself.
Correct. I know.
Just checking.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I can make my wife and kids laugh for hours at a time. I have very angry humor, like Sam Kinison comes to mind, Bill Burr comes to mind, and so I want to try my hand in comedy.
I love that one.
And I figure, why not? I've got great leaders in my building who run all my companies, and I'm getting to a place where I think I'm going to start taking some improv classes and comedy classes and try an open mic night and see what happens. If I get booed off stage, awesome. If I get some laughs, great.
Definitely. I think it's like adopting that mindset of, you know, what do you have to lose, right?
Yeah. This feels weird putting that out there for the first time, man. I've talked to a few of my team members about it, but I've never like put it out there.
It's kind of like public accountability, right?
Yeah. It's funny because if I said I'm going to start another business that's going to make $100 million, it would have rolled off easier off my tongue. Yeah. Like the fact, like I literally feel myself feeling tense as I was saying that because it's so foreign to me, which is all the reason why I also want to do it. Because when I tell people, go out there and challenge yourself, put yourself out of your comfort zone, if I don't, and that is a dream of mine. I love really making people laugh, making them feel at ease. You wouldn't tell if you're watching me, because what I do at my work requires a lot of focus and intensity. But otherwise, when I'm in the gym with my friends or during the project or at home, I just love cracking the most obscene, foul jokes. And what I'm looking forward to is hopefully by my first or second stand-up show that I get canceled.
Oh my
Like
God.
it will 1,000% happen. Yeah.
This is what I tell her as well. Like she's like, sometimes she's afraid of speaking about certain topics. No, and I tell her, like, push her, speak about what you're comfortable with, be yourself. Takes you a lot further.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. It's uncomfortable, but it's the path you need.
But that's incredible, and I'm so happy that you put this out in the universe, because now they're going to be like, what happened to it?
Right.
So you have, like, the clock's ticking now. Now you don't have that much time.
Yeah. Well, that's the good news is I've already started to write bits of ideas, and so I'm like a German Shepherd. When I put my mind on something, I do it.
You gotta get it
Even comedy, I just don't want it to detract from our businesses, right?
Yeah,
and
of
so I realize like I also have a responsibility to humanity and my companies that I serve. Yeah.
That's incredible. And if you ever need an acting coach, my acting teacher, I found her because I was obsessed with Will Smith's acting style.
Okay.
And I hunted her down, and I was like, Miss Shannon, you need to teach me. And I was so nervous. I've never prayed for an earthquake to happen. I was like, when it was my turn to go, I was like, Lord, please, if you need to have an earthquake, have it be now. But thankfully, I'm alive. I made it out alive, and I recommend her.
Okay, well, I will definitely reach out to you when I need an acting coach. Yeah. Who knows if, a lot of comedians end up becoming actors. You never know what path. And that's the thing, man. I'm 49, but I kind of also realize this has just been the first half of my life. This is just the first act.
Exactly.
Like, I feel if I keep my body healthy, keep my mind sound, and really stay emotionally disciplined, I got another 50 years, like 5 decades ahead of me.
100%.
Like, holy shit, I've got a lot to do.
You're a child, so you have so much stuff to do.
I'm a child, Ed.
So you're obviously such an iconic leader, and as I mentioned, people look up to you so much when it comes to your leadership skills and how you got from A to B and your journey. How has your leadership skills changed and altered from when you first began? Have they?
Yeah, they have. I've become a more emotionally aware leader. So before, if you were just like me, I could lead you. Type A, tightly wound, high speed. I said, you give me anyone that's type A, tightly wound, high speed, I can lead them. Well, not everybody's type A, tightly wound, high speed. Some people are feelers, and they need to feel their way through life, and they need to have expressed their emotions. And I would always butt heads with those people because I don't understand that world. But I've learned part of it is age, part of it is experience. Together, age and experience are wisdom. And so at 49, I have more wisdom, and I could now lead and manage people of different emotions and from places than just you have to be like me for me to lead you. So leadership for me used to be, I'm a hammer, if you're a hammer, we're all hammers, everything's a nail, here we go.
Yeah.
Now I realize, hey, we're all different tools and we can work together on a tool belt, and I actually enjoy that process more.
And I'm sure becoming a dad also changed you.
Oh my God, yes, because my inside voice says, you want to date who, Chloe? But I know if I say that, she's going to find more of those dudes. And so I guide my daughter into making the decisions, and I bite my tongue when I have to. I certainly pick and choose my battles, and there's hills that I will die on. But yeah, being a father, both to a young boy, a young man who's 17 and a young girl who's 15, I learned that, well, what did I do? If my dad jumped out at me with his opinion without really thinking it through, my lens, I would shut down. It's the last thing I want my kids to do. So I've learned to, control my emotions more too as a leader because of my kids.
We kind of touched up on it before. Lilian and myself, we have a social media business, and we've gotten to a certain point where we've been quite successful, but we're trying to scale it. And I know you've spoken about this before, bringing in high-performing individuals. And now we're having a kind of issue with that. How do we not only bring in these high-performing individuals, but retain them at the same time? Can you give us some tips on that?
Sure. Well, before you even bring in any high-performing individuals, you have to become a high-performing individual yourself, right? At least whatever you visualize as a high performer. If I put a marker board out in front of us here and I said, make a list of the traits and skills that a high-performing leader would have, you make those traits and skills. In fact, I do that in my conference room upstairs all the time. When I have a coaching client who comes in for their half-day coaching session, they go, it's a $5 million business. Like last week, it was a The gentleman had a $5 million a year business. He wants to 10x it to a $50 million a year business. I said, here's the marker, get on the marker board, write down the traits, now write down the skills, write down the habits, write down the morning routine of this $50 million CEO. And he did. And I said, now circle all the things that you're doing. And like, he only circled 30% of the things that $50 million CEO is. So I said, when you do all those things, then you become that guy. You attract the leaders, the other leaders to work for you. You attract the right customers, clients, new business. You're able to orate a better message on your platform, whether it's YouTube, podcast, social media. And so I forget who the author was, but there was an author on a leadership book, and he said 6s and 7s cannot lead 8s and 9s. I think that's a very powerful statement. And so if I'm a 6 or 7 leader, 6 or 7 communicator, 6 or 7 in my ability to make decisions, I need to get to a 9 or a 10 to be able to then attract the most talented people. When I look at my timeline, I started Fit Body Bootcamp in 2012. We became a franchise, and then by 2015-16, we hit the Inc. 5000 list, Inc. 500 list, Entrepreneur Magazine's 200 fastest growing franchises. I could look at my personal development over those years and see that I kept getting better as a human, as a decision maker, as a communicator, emotional discipline, mental toughness, and the business kept scaling because I would fire people that weren't a good fit and hire better people who I can retain because they saw that I was going somewhere. So you become the leader that you want to be using that marker board example that I gave you, which means it's a lot of work. It's not a light switch that we flip. It's more of a dimmer switch that we slowly evolve into that leader. That leader magnetically attracts the right people.
Now, you always talk about, the power of your identity and obviously branding. How important is like branding to certain companies? Do you put so much thought into it, or is it something that just comes naturally to you more?
I think it's always come naturally to me. I've always had the ability to get attention. Some might say I'm high in drama. I've always had the ability to get attention, and I've known that. I know, and I've saw my dad, he's a great storyteller. I've literally seen him talk his way out of getting arrested at our house by 2 KGB agents in Armenia.
Oh, wow.
By building rapport, telling story, and the next thing you know, having a bottle of vodka with these 2 guys and then sending them off. Calling it a day, right? And they were there to see if we were going to escape, and they weren't any wiser. And so my dad's always been a great storyteller, and I've noticed that about him, and I've probably picked up those traits. But to me, when you then are able to tell a story, transfer a thought, feeling, emotions over a microphone or a camera, man, that becomes like a nuclear bomb. It's almost like fishing with a nuclear bomb instead of just a fishing rod. And so to me, branding has to be front and center now. You don't have a competitive edge if you're not branding. Great example is Elon Musk. Like, who is he to go up against Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Ford, and Chevy, and Dodge to create an electric car, when all those other companies, legacy companies, had cars and electric cars? But he created Tesla, an electric car that outsells all of them, simply because we know who Elon Musk is and what he stands for and what his core values are. Same with SpaceX, same with Neuralink and the Boring Company that he owns. I don't know who the face of GM is. I don't know the face of Dodge. I don't know the face of Ford. It's a car. People do business with people. And so today, social media allows us to go, I like that guy and what he stands for or what she stands for, and therefore I'm going to do business with her. This is why The Rock, I love the guy.
We love The Rock.
I love the guy. And here's a funny story. About 6 months ago, my CEO, Bryce, goes, dude, you're not going to believe this. The Rock follows you. I'm like, stop it. He probably was accidentally, someone hit follow on my account. Any day now they'll unfollow, right? So a week later, he's like, dude, they're still following you.
No way.
Dude, he's still following you. So here we are 6 months later. So I sent him a DM. I was like, hey, man, I really appreciate the follow. And he just sent me a little fist bump emoji. It says, I love the work you do. And I was like, holy shit. And so I asked a mutual friend, Phil Heath, 7-time Mr. Olympia. I'm like, hey, did you, because Phil Heath is a friend and a client, did you? He's like, no, man, I didn't drop your name. But I share that with you because what I'm about to say is, first of all, I'm going to preface this. I love The Rock.
Yes.
But he was not the greatest wrestler. But he was a great showman.
And a great brand now.
And a great brand. What does he know about tequila? Absolutely nothing. yet he sells the most tequila. What does he know about energy drinks? Absolutely nothing, yet you've got ZOA energy drink. What does The Rock know about ice cream? Nothing, but he sells ice cream. What about water? Voss water, but he sells a shit ton of it. What about shoes and apparel? He knows nothing about it, right? But he has done a great job building a personal brand, letting us into his life, showing us that he's the hardest worker in the room. Like, I can quote what his core values are. He's the hardest worker in the room. He didn't say he's the best, the most talented, Oscar-winning actor. He said he's the hardest worker in the room. And all of us can somehow relate with that.
100%.
And so because of that, if I was going to drink tequila, I'm drinking Termana. If I'm going to drink an energy drink, it's going to be ZOA. If I was going to wear anything other than Fuel Hunt, it would be Under Armour, because he promotes it and I like him, and therefore I like what he sells. Same with Elon Musk. And that's the beautiful thing about a brand. You build your brand, who you are, what you stand for, what your core values are, you will repel a bunch of people, but those that you attract will be ferociously on your side.
That's so true. You know what came to mind? He had this alarm, this app that woke you up with his voice.
right.
What was that called? Like
The Rock did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We had it at one point.
I'm not even like his number one fan, but
Yeah.
I found myself waking up to his voice every day
Sure.
at 5 a.m.
That's
like, get up,
genius.
wake up now. And because he told me, he put me on it. And so
Right.
that's like he built like this likable character. Every day I would listen to his
Right.
voice.
And when
Isn't
you
that crazy?
honestly, when you really look at it, like he's an entertaining actor, but he's not.
He's not like a Academy Award winning.
Right.
but we
Same as
like
a
him.
wrestler.
Yeah.
Same even in football. Like if you watch a show, I'm a big fan, so I watched the Young Rock show.
Yeah.
Like, man, he couldn't make it in the NFL, so then he went to the Canadian Football League. He couldn't even make it there,
Yeah.
right? But you just love him to pieces because he just keeps
pushing.
trying. And how do you not believe in a guy who keeps trying and you just want to buy everything he sells?
100%.
And I like that about him, man. And I think more people need to realize if they saw themselves as a personal brand and then their product was an extension of that brand, their business would skyrocket.
And I think people give up too easy. You know, like how you mentioned, they think they're going to get like a quick fix. There's a pill it's going to make them more successful. There's like a cheat system. There isn't a cheat system, but if you try one thing, it fails, try another thing. Don't give up.
Yeah. That's exactly, like, what else do you have to do with your life?
And then
right?
what? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you
And then
gonna
what?
do?
You're going to
Yeah.
sit around and watch TV? So just try the other way. There's always that. Was it Benjamin Franklin who created the light bulb? They talk about like it was the 1,000th attempt at the filament before he was able to, like, because what else did he have to
you
do?
imagine?
Sit in the dark?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I always tell my family as well, it's, you have to, like, I feel like life is like a list of achievements. And, you tick it off, you go down the list and you keep ticking it off. It's like, what else do you have to do in your life?
That's it. Exactly. It's achievements and experiences.
Yeah.
That's it. And then those two things on your deathbed become memories, right? Like fond memories, achievements, and even the worst achievements. Like I look back, we can always look back at a disaster and go, remember the time? Like I was stuck in Hurricane Sandy in New York. Nothing was open. The hotel that I was staying at was like, hey, you're on your own. Find food. And I was like,
my
okay.
God.
It was an awful 3 days to be stuck in New York City in a hurricane. I can look back on that and just fondly think about that experience and go, that was pretty cool.
That was pretty
That was
funny, yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I made it. Like how did I make it back to California? And so, but if everyone just folds and dies and gives up so quickly, like what stories do you have to tell your grandkids?
100%.
It's actually funny because some of my best memories were the worst times.
Of course.
Like being an engineer, I had to literally work in the middle of the desert in Australia. And I look back and I'm like, wow, that was actually the most fun I had,
Right.
There were bed bugs. He had to sleep in his car. It was like so dramatic, and it would only happen to him.
Right.
But like now we laugh about it.
Yeah,
you know?
they're the best times.
Exactly, because it was an experience. You probably achieved things from that, and achievements and experiences together is what life's memories are all about.
I know you've touched up on imperfect action, and I know there's a lot of positivity around that, and it sets you up to keep going ahead in life. But can there be a negativity to that as well? Can it set you up for failure? And have you experienced that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've taken so much imperfect action that I failed from a lot of it. If you can course correct, you course correct. Most oftentimes you can, with the exception of death. If you take a very imperfect action, like, hey, I'm going to hold on to this parachute backpack. I'm going to jump out of the plane. I'm going to attempt to put it on and then pull the ripcord, you're probably going to die, right? That's not a
Maybe don't
good
try that.
example of imperfect action. Good example would be when I can think of a multitude of businesses. So I created a business called High Tech Trainer many years ago, and I had no idea about software. I had no idea what Palm Pilots can do, and this was before the iPhone, so it was all going to happen on a Palm Pilot. We were going to have these 12 Palm Pilots in every gym across the country, and you could check out your Palm Pilot and it'll put you through a workout if you can't afford a personal trainer, right? The idea made sense, but I had no idea how far deep into it I was. And so I hired a mediocre programmer, and I didn't realize that people aren't going to return the Palm Pilots. They're just going to walk out with it, right? So the gyms go, hey, we're all out of Palm Pilots. What do you mean you're out of Palm Pilots? They're not disposable.
Yeah.
Like, they're Palm Pilots. What happened? I don't know. People took them, right? And so that business, essentially, we had to pivot. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. And just then, Sprint, which is a cell phone carrier company, at the time had created the jukebox. Before the App Store and Apple, the iPhone, there was a jukebox on Sprint. Well, as it turns out, some executive from Sprint had worked out at a gym that had one of our Palm Pilots. We never made a profitable penny from that business. Wow. The third pivot, when that executive reached out to us and said, can you put these workouts, these demonstrations on a flip phone? Sure. Well, we're going to charge $250 a month and we'll give you 50% of that money. All of a sudden, we're making $60,000 a month. And I was like, hallelujah.
Wow.
So that's a great example of imperfect action, constant change, pivot, and then you maybe get lucky. Maybe the universe decides that because you're staying in the fight, the universe is going to reward you with some luck, the right person, the right connection. And I said yes one more time, and it worked. And if it didn't, then maybe the T-Mobile guy would have worked, right? But ultimately, the iPhone came out and completely put High Tech Trainer out of business. So maybe when you ultimately look at it. But short of death, imperfect action is either going to lead to success or lessons. Both of those are valuable.
I spoke about this before. I'm a project engineer. I'm working on the runways at LAX. I've worked on the People Mover. And at the same time, we have our social media business. But there is a lot of, I guess, skills I've learned from engineering, from, different management styles, from the business aspect, contract management, to like organization, to like leading. But at one point, would you say, shift your focus and put, 100% into the
One
business?
basket,
Yeah. I would probably do that sooner than later, because there's something powerful about singularity of focus, right? You figure, like actually today, I tore my tricep about 8-9 weeks ago. So today I went to physical therapy and they used this laser to, like, it literally heats up the top of my skin. They said, if it gets too hot, let us know. But otherwise, it's shooting into the tendons of my tricep, and it is reactivating the cells. It said the photons, you're an engineer, so you'll understand. I just asked them, so I go, what's happening right now? He goes, the photons are activating your mitochondria from the cells. And I remember the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, the photons are activating your mitochondria of the cell to start regenerating and rebuilding that tissue faster. I'm like, get the shit out of here. Like, that's nuts, man. They didn't even cut me open. It's like all laser, right? And so that's laser focus. Now imagine if that was like a broad, wide laser. Probably wouldn't get the same results. Like, they were like, the doctor made pinpoints in 3 specific areas, and he wanted the laser in those specific areas. That is singularity of focus. You get massive results when you are laser focused. When you are trying to spread your energy across a couple of different jobs and then a side gig that you're trying to start, you never really master any of them, and you always feel like I'm stealing from one to give to the other, or how most men will feel when they're at work. They feel guilty about not being with their family. So they just spend the whole time at work in a state of guilt. Then they get home, they feel guilt that they didn't do the work required to get their family in a better position. Yeah. You're in a state of guilt at both places. Just go singularity of focus here, go singularity of focus there. Like, my wife is not calling me right now. My kids are not calling me right now. They know my calendar. But when I leave here and I put on my shorts and I go home and I pick up my son, we're going to go to the gym, no one here is going to call me either. And when they do, I can get to it later tonight or tomorrow. But I go singularity of focus of where I am. And so if you can, and I realize what I'm asking is very scary. I'm asking to have so much faith in yourself and in your business model and in the customers that you serve that you completely let go of those 2 vines to be able to focus on this. But that is truly, the universe is just waiting for you to do that, and then it will collude with you. It will conspire with you to give you the results.
No, it's a huge move. But
but it's scary as heck, man, right? Because what if it doesn't work out?
Yeah, one of the biggest decisions, right? Yeah.
Of course.
Like my mom, I don't know if you know this Armenian saying, it says, hingat zmerogex vertermatataste. That's my mom. Mom's like, put one, like you're holding 5 watermelons, put one down. But I'm like, I want it all.
Right.
But then you spread yourself thin and you don't give 100% to it. So no, I completely get that.
And today we're in such a competitive world
Yeah.
that if you can't show up at your highest level version of yourself, of your
100%.
business, like you don't have the competitive advantage.
100%. It's okay. Arlen will quit next week.
Let me know when you do. Yeah, send me a DM. Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about relationships. So obviously we know if you're with the right woman, she can elevate your life. If you're with the wrong person, they can completely ruin your goals, your dreams, anything that you have in mind to achieve. And obviously vice versa with men as well. My question is, in this day and age, everything is so easy, quick, everything is under your fingertips. In a click of a button, you can meet 50 million people all across the world. How do you get rid of the junk and focus on, like, how do you find your person? Especially, like, we have this saying that we say, if you're going to marry and leave outside your family, especially if your family is, successful and they have your back and you're positive and you're in a really nice place, in order to leave them and to create your own family, you don't only have to kind of, have something over here, but level up, obviously. How do you find that person? Like, are you going to, find someone, hope for the best and try and like build an empire with them? Or are you going to work on yourself, the best version of yourself, and find someone to your capacity? I know that's a very loaded question.
It is a loaded question. And
like,
you kind of
give up now.
The answer was kind of in the question when you said, are you going to work on yourself?
Yeah.
And then develop self-mastery, overcome the shit. And I know your mom's sitting right here, but
It's okay, she's fine.
All parents, even if they don't want to, give us some level of limiting beliefs or trauma or whatever. That's just how it is, even with the best of intentions. And so if I'm bringing in trauma and limiting beliefs that I got from parents, school teachers, abuse that I experienced in life, right? Bullies that beat me up. And then she's bringing the same stuff. Oh boy, we're going to have a lot of problems because now we are not speaking the same language. But if I spend time healing, overcoming, building the best version, developing my core values, what are my negotiables and non-negotiables? Like, I knew that I didn't want my kids to see the inside of a daycare. Like, that was a very high priority to me. So when I met my wife and we started to get serious, I said, if we get married, I know you're going to school to become a physical therapist, but if we get married, I'm going to need you to raise our kids. I don't want them to see the inside of a daycare because I had to walk home and stay home by myself. My parents couldn't even afford daycare, so I got into so much trouble at home on my own until they got home.
Because you had too much time on your hands.
Of course, right? And so I wanted my wife to, like, that was a core value for me. And so she said, hey, that's fine, but what about money? I said, I'm going to figure out a way to make us a lot of money. And then I did. So I had to keep my end of the bargain for her to do her end. So when you've done the work, two people that have done the work, healed, developed, have core values, and those core values are equally yoked, a biblical term, right? Equally yoked, people come together. Now you can move forward with those same core values. But recently I met a person, they're in their late 40s. I go, hey, how's it going? How's life? He's like, oh man, I watch your show all the time, da-da-da. I want to have kids. My wife doesn't want to have kids. I'm like, how long have you been married? He goes, 15 years.
Wow.
Did you guys not talk about this when you were dating?
Yes.
No. He goes, I just assumed that we would, you get married and you have kids. I'm like, that's a good assumption, but...
For 15 years?
Right?
It took 15.
So they've been nagging each other for 15 years, and now he's like, what do I do? I said, consider adopting. I don't know, go be a big brother, a big sister kind of deal. Change her mind, divorce her. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but that's a conversation should have happened 16 years ago, right? Yeah. Before you were even married. And so when people don't have those conversations, think about this. You don't pick your parents. You don't pick your siblings. Like, I'm glad that, mom's here and
this worked out.
Yeah, this worked out. But you only pick one person in your life, your spouse.
100%.
And so the person you're picking should not just be like, I picked someone, now I'm going to hope for the best. Like, it better be very intentional, very deliberate,
100%.
Based on our core values. I've healed. Have you healed? No, you haven't? Okay, I'll see you later. I'm going to move on because we're going to build a family, and the greatest responsibility we have is to take 2, 3, 4 little kids, send them off into the world. Are they going to become sociopaths and kill people, or are they going to become like servants of humanity, right? Like, that's such a responsibility that people don't think about, and that's why we have a 50% divorce rate. And then of the 50% of folks that are together, half of them hate each other. They just don't want to divorce because it's going to cost too much money. And so when you figure 25% at best are happy, it breaks my heart. But that's the state we're in because people didn't do the investment of time and energy and work ahead of time.
And I think so many people are afraid of being single, so they just want to settle. But you're not picking a partner for yourself. You're picking the father of your kids, the mother of your kids. This is like the biggest decision of your life.
Truly the biggest decision.
Truly.
Yeah.
No pressure
Yeah.
on us.
Like, I can lose businesses. I don't want to have to lose my kids because I made a bad decision with my spouse, and so now I only see my kids 2 days, 3 days out of the week.
God.
I don't care if I lose all 7 of my companies. I could rebuild those. I can't rebuild an Andrew and a Chloe, so I better pick the right woman, and she hopefully better have picked the right guy so that we can work this thing through, right?
That's incredible.
I want to go into the topic of anxiety. I think I experience anxiety, but it's because my expectations are so high of myself. But at the same time, I see it as a positive because it's having the fear of failure. From your experience, you continue to grow. You're already successful. Do you have anxiety first of all, or is this something that shifts as you become more successful?
Yeah, I used to have anxiety, like massive anxiety, to the point where, again, in my book, I talk about it. I think the chapter that I talk about that is entitled "The Morning of My Heart Attack." Yeah. I had an anxiety attack so bad, I thought I was having a heart attack, right? I don't have anxiety anymore, not an ounce of it, because I realize what anxiety is. Anxiety and depression, unless it's clinical depression, which is probably like 1% or 0.5% of society who says they're depressed. Of all the people that say they're depressed, really 0.5% or 1% are clinically depressed. Most everyone else suffer from anxiety and depression because it's self-manufactured. What anxiety and depression really is your conscience, your highest inner self, knocking on your door and saying, hey, you are incongruent with the man or the woman that you want to be, that you visualize, that you see in your mind's eye. In the theater of the mind, you see this version, but you are incongruent, and so I'm going to make you feel anxious and depressed because that leads people to action. But hopefully it leads you to a different action, towards doing something to become the congruent man or woman. And so here's the loop. It goes congruency, confidence, competence, congruency, confidence, competence. There's a congruency, confidence, competency loop that takes place. When you are congruent, so if you say, all right, I'm going to wake up tomorrow at this time, and you wake up at that time without hitting the snooze, and I'm going to drink 30 ounces of water, and then you drink 30 ounces of water. You stack 2 W's already, 2 wins. Then I'm going to go work out immediately. Okay, then you did 3 wins. Then I'm going to send out 3 gratitude text messages. Now you got 4 wins under your belt that morning. It's not even 9 o'clock yet, man. You're stacking W's. You are congruent to the man you said you are. You're building confidence. When you build confidence, you then become more competent at your bigger dreams and goals. Maybe I just want to quit working as an engineer and leap into our business. I'm such a congruent man, and I keep my word, and I'm confident that I believe I can competently quit and go do this. You see how that loop?
So get rid of the anxiety.
There goes anxiety and depression, because the congruent, confident, competent man does not have anxiety and depression.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Perfectly said.
Yeah, seriously.
And there's kind of like a part 2 to this. And you've mentioned men want 2 things, and that's building an empire and having respect. Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself always constantly battling with having respect even at this stage? Or is that something that, you receive respect because you're at this stage, if that makes sense?
So Warren Buffett had a really good quote. He said it takes 20 years to build your reputation and 20 minutes to ruin it with one bad decision, right? Thankfully, I've spent 2 decades grinding, building, establishing, being known for Fit Body Bootcamp, now being known for a best-selling book, being known for a podcast that's blowing up, being known for our supplement line, Truly. And so all those years, thankfully now, and I've got enough grays to prove it, I can walk into most rooms and I'm respected. I think anyone can tell when someone's got like life experience and they've done what they said they were going to do. Like, someone can walk into that door and I can within seconds tell you if they're the real deal or if they're full of shit, right? Just through their mannerisms, how they carry themselves, the aura, the eye contact, all of it. So thankfully these days I get respect. There was a time where I didn't do anything to deserve respect, and so it had to be earned. Did I keep my word? Did I show up to you? Did I say that I'm going to be at the gym and spot you when I was going to be there? And all those things, then eventually you would respect me. But now I've got a reputation that precedes me, and therefore respect is easily earned now. I could very easily ruin it as well, right? Like in 2 minutes, in 20 minutes, in 20 seconds, I could ruin it by turning on Instagram going live and saying one stupid sentence.
You won't. Now, talking a little bit about health, so you had a massive body transformation a few years back, which inspired anyone that came across, your content and anyone that knew you, I'm sure. So we come obviously from Sydney, and there's a massive health culture that's like trending to be fit and go to the gym and, eating clean and meal prepping and things like that. So to be honest, when I moved here a few years ago, I found it much more difficult to be healthy and fit in America. Obviously, the food, the lifestyle is very different to back home. Now, what's one thing, if someone is struggling in this day and age, what's one thing that they can implement today quickly to get on the track of being healthy?
The easiest thing you can do, and study after study proves it, that you're 3 times less likely to eat food that's not within eyesight. So in other words, if there's M&Ms or a bagel or a box of donuts on the counter,
get rid of it.
Get rid of them, right? Put them away. Put them away. 3 times more likely. You're infinitely more likely to not eat them if they're not in the house. So don't buy shit that you don't want to eat, because the number one thing you can control is eating. You can't out-train a bad diet, right? But I can take someone who's never going to work out and help them lose 30 pounds through nutrition. You eat shitty, I don't know how much workouts we'd have to do to lose 30 pounds. We'd kill you before you lose the weight. And so because of that, nutrition is the number one thing. And as it turns out, if it's not within eyesight, you're not going to eat it 300%. So for example, my kids still like to eat cereal. They're athletic, they work out, they're young, they get to eat cereal. I go, hey, make sure you put it in the pantry, because there's a fat kid that lives in me. And that kid has like permanent residency. And if I see a box of cereal on the counter, at nighttime when my willpower is lowest, because I deal with a lot of stuff like any entrepreneur would, willpower is lowest, I'm most likely to grab a handful and eat it, right? No, so they know to keep it out of sight. I know not to go there. Ideally, it wouldn't even be in the house in the best case scenario, right? And so that's really it. The number one thing is to exercise your willpower, but then to exercise common sense, which is, if I don't want to get fat, don't have food around me that's fattening.
And Arlen, I feel like it's going to kill me, but one day we're going to do your boot camp.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was like watching these stories. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
You can do the Masogi, which is a co-ed program, which is 12 hours long and not 75 like the project.
Or I can just cheer on Arlen.
That's a nice cop-out, isn't it? Yeah. Or you can cheer him on as he's dying through the project. Yeah. But it is a life-changing experience. Yeah.
I've seen it's really ruthless. So.
It is. It is a ruthless, life-changing experience. It literally breaks men down and rebuilds them. And the instructors that we have for the project are literally just, I believe the universe brought us together and continues to allow us to serve men at the most highest level. Yeah, with the project. It's the most meaningful work I do is the project. Like, I've got 9 letters, like handwritten letters, in my drawer upstairs in my office of men who had considered killing themselves, committing suicide, but came to the project instead to see if this would help them or not. And they transformed, they developed a brotherhood, they developed new core values, and moved on in life. Like, what an awesome experience. So while it's the only company of mine that does not make money, it actually loses money every class that we run, it is the most meaningful work I do, other than, obviously raising my kids.
I'm sure, and I think that's definitely needed in society, because especially, I don't have kids myself yet, but if you have kids growing up and they're boys, keep them so busy that they don't have time to mess up or do anything.
Right.
So I think that's like the perfect way, get them in the boot camp.
Yeah.
Should we do a fire round of...
Yes, I just wanted to bring up like a few names or topics and just hear your thoughts. It can be good or bad. So first on the list, Andrew Tate.
I think he's got great intentions. I think he's a really good dude. I think because he's young and his ego will get in the way, his ego gets him into trouble. But I think his intentions are good, and we need his voice.
Aiden Ross.
I don't know who Aiden Ross is.
Arlen said you were going to say.
Yeah. Did you guess that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea who Aiden Ross is. Beautiful name. Yeah, but I have no idea who that is.
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul.
Jake, the Logan brother?
Yeah.
Logan and Jake Paul.
Yeah. Whatever, man. He over the top, a little sensational. One of my business partners, Dan Fleischman, is good friends with them. I've never met them, so I've got nothing bad to say about them. I don't know. Would I want my son to emulate him? Probably not.
Even like with the success he has?
Financial success is the lowest level of success on my hierarchy of success.
And what's the highest?
The highest level is like a good man. A good man where you walk in and people go like, I know Leighton, he's a good man. I would trust my daughter and my wife with him.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Perfect.
That is, like, to me, the highest, the pinnacle, the tip of the spear of success. Financial success, anyone can get that. Solve a problem that people have and charge money for it. There.
Perfectly
Financial
said.
success.
Jordan Peterson.
Wow. When that man dies, and I hope it's decades and decades and decades from now, when Jordan Peterson dies, we will all go like, there was a fucking amazing human being. He's so powerful in the way he articulates a message. We are so stupid as society in not hearing his message and instead trying to cancel him and slice and dice his terminology to take it out of context and call him a womanizer. The man is pro-humanity, not just pro-men. He's pro-humanity. And all he does is he literally shares facts, but people are so sensitive to the facts. They just want to live in this fake ideological world that they see Jordan Peterson as a threat. He's really a gift to humanity, probably at one of the highest levels, at the level of, I would say, Joe Rogan is, a gift to humanity, and people don't see that in him.
Gary Vee.
Good dude, one of our fellow communist immigrants, right? Like, he came from Belarus, I came from Armenia, the Soviet Union. We shared the stage a couple times before. I love that when he locks on to anything, like, there's a great example of singularity of focus. He's got such a big brand that when he locks on to anything, whether it was Empathy Wines and then he built that and sold it, now it's the Jets. Like, for years he talked about owning the Jets, and I think now he owns a part of the Jets. The New York Jets. Like, he can lock onto anything. He's a great example of singularity of focus and then just willing the universe through hard work and lots of money and teams and getting the outcome that you want. Yeah, like the American dream.
Kim Kardashian.
Kim Kardashian, our fellow Armenian. I think she has a bigger responsibility to humanity and to young girls, and I think she's letting a lot of young girls down.
Think so?
I believe so, because she is not representing what a healthy body is and creating a lot of body dysmorphia. Now, guess who has the ultimate responsibility for all the little girls on the planet? Their moms. Their moms should be their role model, not Kim Kardashian. Because the moms have done such a poor job and they've outsourced all education to television and social media, Kim Kardashian gets to influence them. She doesn't have bad intentions. She's doing what gets attention and money. That's it. She's doing what gets eyeballs and money. But unfortunately, it's changing the perception of what these young girls think a female body should be, which is unrealistic and unattainable without surgery or chemicals or whatever. And that's, like, my daughter's an athlete. She would never look like Kim Kardashian. She has no desire to look like Kim Kardashian. She's a fucking confident volleyball player, amazing at what she does, and she sees Kim Kardashian and she's like, fake.
Yeah.
Like, every girl should be doing that. And that's cool. Like, then I would say, if every girl did not have an issue with the body dysmorphia that show Kardashians generates, then I would say, good for her, man. Make your billions. Good for you. Like, I'm happy for her. But once you have status, you've got a social, like, I've realized I have a voice to young men. And if I start getting young men to create anarchy, I've got a responsibility, man. I can't just go, hey, young men, you should go and fight against cops and create social injustice and like tear the cities down. I could do that. Andrew Tate can do that. Jordan Peterson can do that. So we have a responsibility, and if you disregard that responsibility, then to me, you're a lesser human.
Elon Musk.
There's a visionary. While we're trying to make it on Earth, he's trying to figure out how we're going to live on Mars. Like, what a great... Is that nuts?
Seriously,
Yeah.
that's
Like,
insane.
he's got a fucking rocket with the Tesla in it going to Mars right now. And we're trying to figure out what's the fastest way to get home because we're fighting traffic. Like, he is, again, like Jordan Peterson, many, many decades from now, when he dies, we will go like, there was a man who changed the course of humanity. And I think and I believe in a positive way that he decided to buy Twitter because it was the public platform used for this country. It's always immigrants, man. It's always us immigrants trying to save this country because we value the Constitution, because we come from oppression. You know, he comes from oppression. He knows what South Africa was. I know what communism is. We will fight for the Constitution. He could never be president. I could never be president because I was not born here. You guys weren't born here. You could never be president. But you can have a massive impact through your voice and through your actions and through your deeds. And that's what he's doing, man. And the fact that he was able to buy Twitter and then expose what was going on with the suppression of information, that is huge, man. And we will see only decades later the impact that he's had in saving America, the last free country.
I agree. And I think one last one, PBD, Patrick Bet-David.
Love that guy, man. My Armenian, half Armenian brother, great dude. He came out to HQ a couple times. I was in Fort Lauderdale at his HQ, I don't know, a couple months ago. Anyway, PBD is a great man. What I say about that guy, other than like all those voices, the Tates, the Jordan Petersons, the Joe Rogans, PBD, he built a business. That's the great thing about capitalism. I want to go on record and say capitalism allows you to make so much money that then you can build a platform and then use your voice to help humanity. That's what Joe Rogan did, by the way. He's a capitalist. He, using comedy and being a commentator for the UFC, made himself so much money that he got a platform and was able to grow that platform, get enough ears and eyes to pay attention, and he's helping guide humanity to what I feel is a better place. Trying to bring both sides together, which I think is the only way we're going to save this country. I can't say the right is good. I can't say the left is good. There's a middle of the road that we have to live. Like if there's a boat and we're all on it, you can't try and throw me off and I have to try and throw you off. Like what can we do to live on this boat together? Because it's the ocean. We're not going to swim forever. And so that's what PBD has done, man. He's built a company, he sold that company, and now he's used that money to build a media platform where he's able to literally impact and engage humanity, and I think in one of the most meaningful ways.
We love that. We flew to his HQ to film as well. The sweetest person. We're very proud of you both. But I was going to say, this concludes our interview, but we're very proud of you. We think what you're doing is amazing, and just to have an Armenian voice in society is something that we're incredibly proud of.
Thank you.
This is just the tip of the iceberg for you.
I appreciate that, and if there's anything I could do for you and your audience, always lean on me. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Thank you. So everyone subscribe to my channel. Obviously subscribe to Bedros. Hopefully this can inspire one of you, and don't forget to share this video, thumbs up this video, and let us know your thoughts and comments in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Of course.